Bueno, muy bien. Yo creo que este es un buen momento para arrancar y podemos ir uniendo nuevas personas a medida que van avanzando. Antes de arrancar, quisiera preguntarles a todos ustedes, me pueden contestar hablando o me pueden contestar eh, por el chat, si les parece bien que conduzcamos la reunión en español, en inglés o en los dos. Entonces, ¿hay alguien de los que se ha unido que no hable español, que prefiera que lo hagamos en inglés? First question I have for everyone is, should we conduct the meeting in Spanish or in English or both? And I will try do my best to do both languages. So, is there anyone in the that would prefer to do it in English or in Spanish, or everyone can speak Spanish, or is there anyone that would prefer that we conduct it in English?
Daniel Bisham here. I don't understand much Spanish, so you can do Spanish and English, or English if the others would be okay with that, if that's okay.
Perfect. Thank you, Bashem. And Bashem is one of the key people here that have been working on this task. Is there anyone that will have a problem that we conducted in English, the meeting? ¿Está bien que la hagamos en inglés? ¿Todos están bien? Podemos hablar despacio y traducir cuando sea necesario. Entonces, ¿está bien que la reunión sea en inglés? ¿Alguien? Sounds to me that everyone is happy with English, which is fantastic. I will be happy to repeat anything in Spanish you require, and you can tell us if you have an issue with it. If you have a problem listening us, probably is something in your computer, the volume of your computer. And if you're having problem with the handout, try to use the link that I sent, which is in YouTube, and it's like a normal YouTube video live. If you're still having problems, don't worry. This video will be recorded in YouTube, and you can watch it in any other moment. Okay, so fantastic. We're gonna start in English, and the first thing I'm gonna do, I have a short presentation, and I have a proposed agenda, and I did it in English in case there was someone that will be more of a common language. So I did it in English, but I'm happy to translate anything if people want me to do. I'm listening to the chats and so on. So the first thing is the agenda. And we're gonna do first individual presentations of those of you that are here in the handout and in the YouTube. And then we're gonna talk about the United Nations GGIM World Academic Network, background of the Academic Network for the Americas, which is an idea we developed with Bashem when we met in Barbados last September, I think, if I'm not wrong. And then talk about the task force. So it's kind of the next step for whoever of you want to join us and help us in this. And of course, we're gonna have questions, comments, discussions at the end of 15 minutes. My aim is to be efficient and have a meeting that is no longer than 1 hour. So we'll see how we go. So let's start with the first task. And I'm gonna ask you, everyone, please introduce yourself and tell us where are you from? What is your institution, university, or organization that you work for? And tell us a little bit of your experience with Un-GGIM or with the geospatial world. So let's start with Bashem. Would you like to start, Bashem?
Sure. My name is Bisham Ramlal. I am Associate Professor of GIS at the University of the West Indies, St. Augustine campus. I've served with Un-GGIM as the delegate for Trinidad and Tobago and as a special technical advisor to Un-GGIM Americas, on a project that the government of Mexico is funding for the Association of Caribbean States. I also served as chairman of the Trinidad and Tobago National Spatial Data Infrastructure Council for just about a year and a half. I've been working in GIS for close to 25 years. I think I'll stop there. Thanks.
Thank you, Basham. Rosario, would you like to introduce yourself?
Okay. Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes, all good.
Okay. Okay, great. First of all, thanks for inviting us to be part of this. We really appreciate it. So thank you very much, Daniel and everybody. Well, I'm a surveyor engineer at Uruguay. I'm a professor since, I guess, a long time, 23 years ago. I'm now the director of the Land Surveyor Institute in Uruguay. Uruguay is, in my institute, is the only place that land surveyors are being taught. We have courses for the career. It's a university one. We are in a public university. My school is engineer, and there is our institute. Here we teach to land surveyors. We teach about cadastral, geodesy, photogrammetry, remote sensing, and GIS, of course, also topography, and all related about that, like also about land registration, cadastral, and all the things about the land market to economic urban, and also about planning. And we also have a new career that is of 2 years, that is about teaching about cartography, that is a technical degree that is of 2 years instead of 5, that is the one that is the engineering of surveying. And in there we teach how to work in cartography, of course, that teaching also about GIS. Since my role at the director, I've been at the director of the institute, we have been improving to teach more about this specific area, specific about the land information and how to introduce it as its importance to the political government and so on. I think that is enough. Nothing else.
Thank you,
Okay.
Rosario.
Okay.
Thanks for the introduction. Could I ask Mario to introduce himself?
Daniel Marino, maybe.
Marino, discúlpame.
Marino, hello everybody. All. Thank you for the invitation and excuse for my poor English. I am Marino Carhuapoma from Peru, invited by the Institution National of Geography. I'm assistant engineer with 10 years in experience in spatial databases and GIS, focus especially in software development. As a product, we have in these times like system for cadastre, for infrastructure data, and also applications for any industries, mostly for government in open source. Now I'm working with different government institutions as a consultant in Peru. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you,
Hello?
Marino. Joel, Luis Joel?
Yes.
Could you please introduce yourself?
Okay, good morning for everybody. My name is Joel Martinez, working here in Colombia, in Bogota, at the National University of Colombia as coordinator of the master degree program in geomatics. Also working in research, mainly natural resources, geomatics for natural resources management. Thank you.
Thank you, Luis Joel, for the introduction. Para los que están en el chat y que no hablan español, vamos a estar traduciendo esta presentación, poniéndole subtítulos en español. Entonces no se preocupen que todo lo que digamos quedará traducido con subtítulos. For those of you that doesn't speak English, don't worry, we'll translate everything that is in this presentation, and we will add a subtext in Spanish so you can have it. So for Carlos and other people that have mentioned. For those of you that are in the chat, I can see Guillermo Percy, Daniel Del Congliano. If you send me, Carlos Lopez, if you guys send me a little text on the chat in the comments, I can. So if you want me to introduce yourself, just send me a little text on the chat. Para los que están ahí, voy a comenzar con Carlos. Carlos Lopez Vázquez. I am the head of the Cartography Commission of the Pan American Institute of Geography, one of the supporters of the Un-GGIM. In addition, I am in charge of the Geomatics branch of the master program at ORT University in Montevideo, Uruguay. So welcome, Carlos. Thank you for your introduction. If anyone else would like to introduce themselves, please put a little comment and I will read it out loud. While that happens, let me move to my next slide. And there is a lot of people here that already know what is Un-GGIM. I'm just going to do a quick introduction and so we can have a discussion about it and put everyone on the same page and understand what are we doing here. So what is Un-GGIM? And so Un-GGIM stands for the United Nations Committee of Experts of Global Geospatial Information Management. So it's a committee of experts and is part of the United Nations system. As some of you have worked with the United Nations, you know that it's a very formal system, and the United Nations is about exactly that, nations. So there are not individuals that are full members, there are only nations that are full members. We just got Maria Jose Garcia joining us. Welcome, Maria Jose. Would you like to introduce yourself quickly? Okay, we'll leave it that for later. And so as one of the key things that happens, I mean, some of you will know better history of the United Nations in the geospatial world, but after the many kind of privately owned bodies or NGOs, they found that there was the need for coordination at the highest level between nations. So they created this GGIM as a forum or as a space, a platform to liaise and coordinate among member states. So it's a place where countries meet, and normally countries delegates are appointed by the ambassador of the United Nations or the government, and between member states and international organizations. So that is kind of the role of the Un-GGIM. What is the aims? So this is a forum where the nations meet, and the aim or purpose of it is to play a leading role in setting the agenda for the development of global geospatial information. So the United Nations has recognized that geospatial information is fundamental for many purposes of the United Nations role, including peacekeeping, sustainable development, meeting the development goals, and so on. So the aim of the Un-GGIM is to help in that as a platform to liaise, play a leading role and liaise between the nations, and of course, promote its use to address key global challenges. So they realize it's very important that the countries play a leading role in being able to share the information, but most importantly, that nations use information in the best way possible. So what are covered by Un-GGIM? What are the topics of Un-GGIM? Remember, this is the forum between the nations, and most of you will have representatives that travel to the different expert meetings of the world of the high-level meetings, which are ministry meetings, or the expert meetings, which are expert in geospatial management that the country will send. But normally they have a very broad areas, and depends on the interest of the nations that they focus in different aspects. At the moment, this is the list that is on the website. They talk about the geodetic reference framework, the global map, sustainable development, different standards, knowledge base, national institutional arrangements, so about managing the information, what institutions are there. Geospatial statistics, remember un-GGIM is actually under the statistical subsecretary of the United Nations, so they actually have a high component in relation to statistic information. Legal and policy framework, no statements about principles, so they want to share statements about principles, and of course, very related to spatial data infrastructure, the fundamental data sets, and what are kind of the fundamental data sets every country or every region should have. This is just to show you the current chairs and officers of the United Nations GGIM. As you can see, officers of the United Nations GGIM, there are 3 co-chairs, and they come from 3 different parts of the world, and they are actually government officials. So they are appointed by the government to be in un-GGIM, and then un-GGIM elect these co-chairs. And so at the moment, the 3 co-chairs of un-GGIM are from the US, from Mexico, and from China, and the repertoire from Burkina in Africa. So we have, it's a very, again, this is the United Nations system, very formal system, and I just wanted to show you a little bit of the formality of the system. Now, they have regional entities, the un-GGIM, and they have working groups and many other things. But basically, the regional entities are quite important. They have their own governance, and they are a subpart of un-GGIM, but they have a lot of autonomy in many parts. So they have Asia Pacific, Americas, the Arab states, Europe, and Africa. And the one that relates to us is the Americas, and I just put a list there of the countries that are included in the Americas. And the executive body, who are the key people today running the Americas regional entity of un-GGIM. And in that, our current president is Rolando Campo from Mexico. And Alvaro Monet from Chile is the vice president. He's the one that is hosting the meeting in April, something important to keep in mind. And we have our secretary, Monica. And Monica actually is joining us in the call, so she's in the video, so welcome, Monica. And we have many other working groups and subtasks and so on. And this meeting that we're having is actually to form a part of these regional entities for the Americas, and we'll explain that in a minute. So what is the academic network? And let me start by invite you all to visit the website to get full information. Is unggim.academicnetwork.org. And you can, all this information that I'm presenting today is a substract or a little summary of everything that is in the website. So I invite you to go and visit the academic network. So what is the academic network for the un-GGIM? So let me give you a little bit of history. And in December 2015, in one of the meeting of the un-GGIM, they thought that it was important to have additional groups supporting the goals of the United Nations. GGIM, one of the reasons for this is that working between countries is very important, very powerful, but it could be complicated, and it could be full of different bureaucracies, and it takes a long time to achieve things. So they thought un-GGIM should have supporting bodies, including an academic network and a private network and so on, similar to what exists in some extent in some of the other bodies by un-GGIM. So they said it in New York, they said, we will be good to have a body that is about academic people from universities, institutions, from research center that are formally part of the United Nations, and there is a connection into that. One of the first meetings in un-GGIM that happens in Addis Ababa, I should say, and it was in April, and in that meeting it was a high-level forum, so a ministerial level forum of the nations. Remember, un-GGIM is about the nations, and in that forum they did an exploratory meeting and agree in the formation of a task force to form the forum, which was backed by Vanessa and Mr. Greg Scott, which are, Vanessa is a former co-chair, and Greg Scott is the administrative person of the senior advisor to the United Nations that administer Un-GGIM. And after that, 9 of us were invited from different parts of the region to be part of this task force to actually develop the terms of reference, and you can see there, suggest a process for membership and so on. We did that, and in August 2016, we presented for approval in the expert meeting in New York, in the United Nations headquarters, and the academic network was approved. So we already have a world academic network, and if you go to the website that I just mentioned before, in this website, you can actually see the terms of reference and what is the purpose and so on. I'll give you a little bit of information about it, but again, the website gives you most information. So what is the mandate of the World Academic Network? Remember, this is the United Nations Un-GGIM World Academic Network for the world, for the whole world. Is the primary objective is to support the aims and objectives of the United Nations Un-GGIM. So the objective is for the academic network to support the Un-GGIM. And they do it by multiple ways. Some of those is participating in their events, and the academic network sends delegates, and also participating in the working groups, in the discussions, providing information, being active part to try to achieve some of the objectives of the United Nations GGIM. So what is the governance of the World Academic Network? At the moment, according to the terms of reference, the governance is by a chair. There's one chair, and there's one co-chair and a secretary, and the 3 of them form the executive committee. And you can see in the terms of reference that the executive committee, for example, approve admission to the academic network and delegates on the interaction with the different bodies and so on. And so far, there has been 2 officers elected. One is Professor Abbas Rajabifard from the University of Melbourne, and he is the current chair of the Un-GGIM Academic Network for the next 3 years, and I have been appointed as secretary of the UN Academic Network. Probably, I said this is a good moment to tell you that I am Daniel Paez, and I work at Los Andes University in Colombia, and my interest particularly is in the analysis or spatial analysis in urban planning and transport planning, and I did a doctorate at Melbourne University, and I have been working in this urban analysis in different areas. Now, there's an advisory board current for the World Academic Network, and you can see there is a quite broad representation from across the world. There are people from America, from China, from Italy, from Europe, from Austria, from Nigeria, from Canada, and so on. And we have very known professors like David Coleman, who is actually also the chair of GBIS, which is another body of the Un-GGIM. So what's the main focus of the Un-GGIM academic network? And what are kind of the tasks that we have set up to ourselves in this year? First is to review current working groups to identify areas to support and input, and to promote of the network to potential member institutions. So one of the key things we're doing now is to promote it so people become members. And we want to present to the Un-GGIM a registry of current capabilities in the different regions, including the degree programs. I heard from Beshem and from Rosario that they have programs that they offer geospatial education in different areas. So we want to document that and offer it to the different nations. And of course, also in terms of research and applications like those that Marino or Luis Joel and so on that presented. So this is kind of the key things to it. And ideally, we will establish a registry for education, training, and research. So when members are looking for a specific capability in a specific part of the world, we can provide information about it. I'm gonna make a quick stop to introduce some of the people that are in the chat, and I want to welcome Daniel del Congliano, and he writes that he's profesor titular of geodesy in la Universidad Nacional de La Plata in Argentina, and he's a PhD in engineering, and he currently leads the master program in geomatics in this university. So welcome, Daniel. And we have Monica. Monica Guayo is the executive secretary of the Un-GGIM Americas and works directly with our president, Mr. Rolando Campo, which is a co-chair of Un-GGIM and president of the Un-GGIM Americas. And he's been very active in the Caribbean and in many places. And she also works at the National Institute of Statistics and Geography of Mexico, where Mr. Ocampo also works. All right, so this is kind of getting to the end of my presentations. So one of the key things I want you all to invite you to become members, and you can become a member by following the links on the website, and the information is there, but I will be happy to answer any questions. It is important that I bring to your attention that it's a formal process, and each institution needs to be member, no individual. So the membership of the academic network is by institutions, not by individuals. So you have to bring your institution along and bring an introductory letter by your dean or head of department or someone that introduced yourself to the academic network. And you can have more than one representative from the university. So for example, National University of Colombia, where the I know it's a little bit bureaucratic, the process to join, but it is quite interesting in the sense that allows you to give us a proper formal process which meets Un-GGIM standards, and at the same time give us the possibility to do a formal group, the way that the Un-GGIM have asked us to be. Right, let's get into are there any questions? Anyone would like to make any comments before we talk about the academic network for the Americas? I'm finishing my presentation, but are there any questions? Anyone would like to make any comments?
I will.
Please.
Okay.
Rosario.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Daniel. I didn't hear the part. Now I hear, because I was here twice, my voice. Thank you. No, I want to ask you, because I didn't hear it clearly, that you said that the university, for example, in Uruguay, we have different schools, different university, public and the published one, the private one. So there maybe will be, for example, Carlos Lopez, that is there, represents one of those private university, and I represent the public one. And in the University of Uruguay, the public one, we have different schools. I represent one that is the engineering one, but there are others, like, for example, Shuri Reznichenko, that I don't see if he's here or not. He works for the University of Science, that maybe will be interested too. So I was wondering, because I really couldn't hear you, that part, when you said that different groups can be as an institution, but for example, from my university, there can be different person representing one of the other schools. Is that correct? Thank you.
Very important question. Thank you, Rosario. It's something very important question. I'm gonna explain this in both Spanish and English to make sure it's clear, because this is a really important part. So the terms of reference for the World Academic Network of the United Nations establish that the membership is by institutions and not individuals. Now, there might be some instances in where a big university might have more than one institution. They might have a research center that is parallel to the university, that has connection to the private sector. So in that case, that center could be considered an institution that becomes a member. In general sense, university will be the member of Un-GGIM and not the individuals that work there. So if there are more than one individual from one university that wants to be a member, they need to elect, or they need to appoint, or they need to organize themselves to decide which one will be the person that represent that university within Un-GGIM. Ahora lo voy a repetir en español para que quede muy claro. Los miembros de la Un-GGIM, el Academic Network del mundo, son instituciones, no individuos. Entonces, por ejemplo, en mi caso, yo soy la que es miembro es la Universidad de los Andes, y dentro de las personas de la Universidad de los Andes, persona que es el representante ante el Academic Network, o la red académica. Pueden haber muchos más individuos como parte de la Universidad de los Andes que participan del Academic Network. No hay un límite en esto. Lo importante es que los miembros son las instituciones, y las instituciones tienen un delegado ante la Academic Network. En este momento, como será el caso de muchos de ustedes al inicio, yo soy el único miembro de la Universidad de los Andes que estoy participando en el Academic Network, y por consiguiente, pues yo soy el que representa a la Universidad de los Andes en el Academic Network. Si el día de mañana más profesores o investigadores quisieran unirse, entre nosotros nos tenemos que organizar para rotarnos, para presentarnos, como queramos hacerlo, para que uno de nosotros sea el contacto principal ante la Academic Network. No quiere decir que toda la información no se transfiera entre todos. Lo que sí es importante es que las Naciones Unidas tienen unos sistemas de votación, unos sistemas de participación muy estrictos, que hacen que cuando se hacen votaciones tienen que haber consenso, y si no hay consenso hay que volver a votar, y tiene unas reglas muy específicas que se necesita que cada miembro, que son universidades, centros, instituciones, tenga un representante que pueda hacer ese proceso de votación, de elección, y así sucesivamente. Entonces también, como por ejemplo, cuando hay cambio de los oficiales o las personas que lideran el Academic Network, se requieren estos procesos de votación un poco más formales. So I was just explaining exactly the same what I'm saying in English. Remember, the Academic Network for the Un-GGIM is a membership of institutions, and those institutions have an individual, one person or many persons that participate. If there are more than one, that institution needs to have one representative that can rotate, can be every 6 months, every 3 months, every year, or whatever, but one person needs to be kind of the main representative of the Academic Network. Thank you, Rosario, for your question. I'm going to check the chat. Are there any other questions from people? I remember you can write me on the chat, or you can do it whatever you want, if there are any other questions, or otherwise I'm going to continue with the rest of the presentation.
Daniel, excuse me, one question.
Adelante, Marino.
I am understanding that Un-GGIM Academic Network is all the members are professors from different universities, I think. When you talk about institutions, it's possible the member other kind of institution, like here in Peru, National Institute of Geography, or only universities?
Very good question, Marino. it could be any type of institution. It could be a government institution, or it could be a university or a research center that is in the private sector. However, it needs to have some research focus. So, for example, here in Colombia, we have IGAC, which is our national mapping agency. And in that case, they have something called CIAF, which is kind of a research center. So members of that research center of CIAF could be a member of the academic network, and anyone could be there, either if it's professor or not. So the important thing is more the interest of the institution to participate in academic discussions. Now, there are other high-level discussions. In your case, Marino, you can consider to be directly member country and be delegated as a member country, or there are other groups like the private sector and so on. But in most cases, any type of institution will be welcome as long as it has some kind of research component. I have a
okay,
question.
thank you, Daniel. Thank you. It's okay.
Gracias, Marino, por la pregunta. Espero que te hayamos dado claridad. Tengo otra pregunta de Rosario Casanova. Me pregunta, y para el caso de que sean dos universidades del mismo país, ¿cada una de ellas puede tener un representante distinto o uno solo por país? Muy buena pregunta, Rosario. Rosario asks us if there are more than one university in each country, could they have more than one university per country? The answer is yes. Very different to the United Nations, the high level or the expert meetings. In the academic network, we decided on the terms of reference approved by the Un-GGIM that the intention is to have more than one member per country. You can have many universities from one country, as many as the country wants. So in this case, you mentioned two universities. They could have the same person representing both universities, or you can have multiple universities with multiple representatives. So that is a very, very good question. So there is no limit on the number of universities per country. You can have as many as you want. Entonces no hay límite. No hay límite en el número de universidades por país o de centros por país. ¿Cuántos quieran? Es suficiente. Pueden haber 5 de Perú, 2 de Colombia, lo que sea. No hay limitación. Y en eso es una diferencia con el resto del Un-GGIM, donde sí solamente, por ejemplo, en el Expert Meeting, solamente va un representante por país.
Daniel, one question.
Yes.
Joel Martinez from National University in Colombia. Once a university becomes a member of the network, what kind of responsibility or commitment has to be taken by the university?
That is a very interesting question, Joel. Thank you for that question. I'm gonna basically the United Nations Academic Network is a voluntary network. In other words, it is not paid and it's on a voluntary basis. Having said that, if I read you very quickly the statement, basically what they are asking institutions is to participate in the network and help disseminating information and, when possible, participate in projects. So basically, of course, you allow the academic network to list your institution and a little bit of admin things like, no, we will put National University of Colombia as a member and so on. The most important thing is being able to participate in a voluntary organization. Now, of course, challenge in the sense that you have to put work to participate. On the other hand, it gives you access to the network, the other researchers, and access to the working group of the United Nations. So in putting in reality is a little bit of a energy in, energy out, Luis Joel. So if you put a lot of energy, probably you're going to get a lot of interactions in the expert meetings. You will be delegated to go to the working groups and so on. But if there is no much space or there is a lot of other things happening, you put less energy, well, you will have less involvement. But it's on a voluntary and the expectation apart from being involved, there are no limitations on the involvement. So thank you for that question.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, please? They are really good questions. I'm listening. Okay. I'm gonna check quickly the chat. See here. Mauricio asked us when will be the next meeting. So Mauricio, there are multiple different meetings for the academic network and for the United Nations. The next important meeting for us in Las Americas is in Chile in April. I think maybe Monica can help me, but I think it's the 3rd of April to the 5th of April in Santiago. And that's an important meeting because we are going to present the Academic Network for Las Americas, which is kind of a subcommittee, and I'll introduce that in a minute. And that's kind of happening in April. There are other important meetings, regional meetings, and there is the proposal of a high-level meeting in Mexico at the end of the year. And of course, the expert meeting, which is the decision body of the United Nations, is in the headquarters in New York in August normally. So I don't have exactly the dates, but if you find it on the website, you will find it there. I'm going to read a question by Daniel del Congliano. Ya existen otras asociaciones de universidades en América Latina, como el Grupo de Montevideo. ¿Es de interés de esta red académica integrar a estos grupos? That is a very interesting proposal, Daniel. Daniel asked us, there are already existing academic groups or networks within the region. Is it the idea to integrate it? I don't have an idea of that. And one of the options that we would like to explore is that. I think the United Nations platform is a very formal but powerful platform to coordinate and endorse us for an important body in our area. And the United Nations has a lot of influence in what happens in many countries, and I think it's a good opportunity for the region to do that. Having said that, Daniel, part of what we need to study in the task force is that we need to, in the task force, say, hey, we want to do it joining the existing groups, or we want to do individuals for our regional one, or we want to do institutions or so on. So that's kind of the questions that we need to do in the task force to present to the regional meeting in Chile in April. Any other questions? Any other comments before I move to the next part? Okay. Please send me your questions on the chat, or you can just speak out loud and I will follow the question. So the next part I want to discuss is the academic network of Las Americas. And this was an initial idea that one of the things that was happening parallel to the formation of the World Academic Network, I got the opportunity to meet Beshem in Barbados, in the working group of the emergency. What was it? The disaster management meeting of the United Nations, Un-GGIM, kind of the working group, and we were invited there. And with Beshem, we contacted Rolando and asked him that we wanted to explore the option to have an academic network that works with the World Academic Network, but focus on the region, because perhaps there will be some topics and the language, having more material in English, but also in Spanish, in Portuguese, and so on. So we thought it would be interesting. So after that meeting, we were invited by the Un-GGIM Americas to present the World Academic Network in their meeting in October in Mexico. which was the annual meeting of the Americas. And in that meeting, I present the World Academic Network, and I present a proposal to form a task force to form as a committee for the Americas. So Academic Network for the Americas. And in that meeting, it was approved a task force, and it was approved for myself to form the task force and coordinate it to present results in Chile in April in the annual meeting 2017. So in a couple of months, it's the first week of April. So having presented to you all this, the next task that we need to do is actually to find volunteers to form the task force. That's kind of the next step we need to do. So what are the task force objectives? ¿No? Tenemos que formar un grupo entre nosotros para presentar en Chile en abril una propuesta de nuestra red académica en las Américas. Entonces, the first thing is we need to draw some terms of reference for the Americas in accordance to the overarching academic network, the World Academic Network. We can, because we are subgroup, we need to, of course, follow some of their process, but we can be flexible also. So we have the flexibility to form our draft terms of reference. And in that, for example, some of the questions that we got from Daniel, it could help us. I mean, Monica is confirming us. The meeting is the 3rd to the 5th of April. It is the regional committee session, and it's in Santiago de Chile. So the second thing is to suggest a process for local membership to the network. So how are we going to do that? We're going to do it similar to the academic network, the World Academic Network, or to be a members of the regional, you have to be face of the World Academic Network. All those kind of questions are there for us to discuss. And we need to prepare a work plan, because the idea is to do something. I mean, one of the things that we're doing in the World Academic Network is inviting people to be members and try to list all the capabilities around the world. So if you go to our website of the World Academic Network, you can see a map of where the members are and what kind of programs they offer, so the nations know what they can do. And finally, we need to go to Chile and present these proposals for the regional body to approve and start working as a academic network in Las Americas. Again, it's a formal process, and in Chile, we need to present the proposals and hopefully have enough academic people that can have a parallel meeting, and we can have discussions with the president, the vice president, and get support from the different nations. So when actually comes to voting and approving all terms of reference, hopefully it will be approved. So it needs a little bit of work from us first to propose what we want, and then take it to Chile and hopefully get it approved there. That's the task force. So I now would like to invite everyone to join or to propose their name for the task force. And it is very simple. Just send me an email if you are interested. What I have put in the screen is kind of the ideal membership, but it's only an idea. Ideally, we will have in this task force members from broad geographic distribution. So it's fantastic. We're having people from Chile, we're having from Uruguay, from Argentina, people from Peru, and so on. So it's fantastic. We're also having people from Trinidad and Tobago and the Caribbean. So the most diverse group we have is better. And it will be good if some of you that want to be part of task force also do the step to be in the academic network, the World Academic Network, and get a letter from your dean or the director and propose your name to the World Academic Network, so you are also a member of the academic network. And if possible, will be good if you can attend the meeting in Chile, which is not easy for everyone. I will be there, but I will try to set up systems so we can have this kind of meetings or online participation. But if you could travel to Chile, it would be good, because there's a little bit of a interaction needed for this to be agreed. And I have noticed that because of the diversity of the group, it is important that we, in the group, the task force can work in both Spanish and English, but having an English language will be good because a lot of the documents from the regional are produced actually in both Spanish and English, so will help us a little bit. I'm listening from Beshem that he's attending Chile, so it's fantastic if he could join us in the task force. And the task force, as I said, is a volunteer process in where we put our time to propose an academic network, and from the task force will be elected the officers, and we will elect that kind of part of it. So I'm reading from Beshem that he would be happy to be part of the task force, which is fantastic. If you want to be part of the task force or you want more information, to contact me and we can try to have an interaction. Gracias also to Daniel del Congliano. Excellent, fantastic to have someone and excellent that Daniel also can attend in Chile. So fantastic. So all of you that wants to be part, please do not hesitate to join us, and it will be fantastic. Now, to try to measure the work, the task force will have from today to April 2 online meetings that probably won't go longer than 1 hour, 1 hour and a half. In the first meeting, perhaps we will split tasks to produce the terms of reference. And in the second online meeting, what we will do is discuss it and adjust it so we can have something in Chile to present. So no, it's not a big involvement in this task force. I will manage the time to be short, having these online meetings, and discussions in email will be no more than 2 or 3 about the draft terms of reference and ideas to the task force. I do have experience with managing the whole process for the World Academic Network. I was the secretary of the task force, and that's why I was elected secretary of the task force, because I kind of managed the process, and it was a not very intense process. I know all of you are busy and have a lot of occupations, so we will manage to do it control and try to reduce the need for involvement. So it's very effective and efficient, and we can bring to Chile something that works very well for everyone. We are running a little bit of time, but I would be happy to open for questions if anyone would like to add any questions. Okay, I'm checking the chat here. I'm checking the other information. Okay, so I will be sending this video will be in YouTube, so please feel free to share it with your colleagues. I will send you the link. We will, with one of my students, will translate those parts that were spoken in Spanish into English, and those parts that were spoken in English into Spanish with subtitles, so we can have more people participating. And so feel free to share it with your colleagues and invite them to be to the World Academic Network, and invite them to participate in the different aspects. Yes, that is Beshem brings us a very interesting question. The context of the Un-GGIM Americas Academic Network and the UN Academic Network, like kind of the world and the Americas, that is something that the task force needs to consider, Beshem. Ideally will be kind of a subcommittee or part of it in somehow, which our own independency, because the regional bodies like the Un-GGIM Americas, they have some independency in the work that they do. One of those examples is the fantastic work you guys did in the Caribbean with these GPS systems and so on, no? The monitoring antennas and so on. So they have independency. However, it will a good coordination between the world and the regional one would be very useful. And because I am the secretary of the World Academic Network, I will be happy to liaise and think ideas, no? the chair of the academic network, Professor Abbas Rababifard from Melbourne. He's aware of this work we're doing, and he's very supportive, and he really invited us to have initiatives in the region and coordinate with them. So it's a very good point.
Yeah, the whole point, really, Daniel, if I may, is to make sure that we understand the reporting mechanisms and whether, you know, the autonomy that we'll have, the kinds of things that we can do in terms of activities, and how that feeds into the World Academic Network, you know, in terms of making sure that our work also would inform the Un-GGIM academic network, so that the relationship is what we need to be clear on, and to make sure everyone understands that.
Yes, very good, well explained, and it's exactly like that. You know, that's very important, that coordination. Thank you, Basham, for your comment. Are there any other comments before I wrap up this meeting? Any other comments? Remember, you don't need to commit to anything today. You can discuss it with your colleagues, but are there any questions that you have that will help you join the academic network, or perhaps join us in this task force? We already have like 3 members. It would be ideally having 5 to 7. So the more volunteers we have, the better. But are there any comments, any ideas, any proposals before I wrap up this meeting? Okay, I think people are wrapping up. They have other meetings to attend at 12 and so on. So thank you for all of you for attending this meeting. Thank you for your kind words, Bashem and the other people, Carlos and so on. Thank you for participating in this meeting. If you didn't understand everything in this meeting, we will put subtitles in the video and you can watch it later. Si usted no entendió algo, no se preocupe. Vamos a poner subtítulos en este video en YouTube para que lo pueda entender plenamente, y quedo a la disposición de todos ustedes para que sigamos esta conversación y ojalá podamos formar una fuerza tarea que lleve una propuesta muy interesante a la reunión de Santiago de Chile. Entonces, gracias. En este momento voy a terminar nuestra conversación y les deseo un feliz día para todos. Thank you, everyone. I'm going to finish our conversation now. Thank you, everyone, for attending, and have a great day. Bye.